32% employees are feeling anxious about their finances. And another 49% of people, they say, and that's very interesting, if my organization is supporting me, plan my retirement well, I will be more loyal to the organization. Financial trauma, it is prolonged distress situation, and these can be lack of resources, poverty, or through financial discrimination. Now, financial trauma is a starting point, and it can comorbid with various other symptoms. First,
Dr. Sagneet Kaur, Senior Vice President, Behavioral Finance and Consumer Insights at PGIM Asset Management, is a financial behavior scientist specializing in investor psychology and financial trauma. Today, she uncovers its hidden effects and strategies to navigate it.
What are some of the primary triggers for financial trauma, especially in the Indian context?
poverty is one aspect, and the most important aspect, I think, that is financial abuse and financial bullying, which nowadays nobody talk about, but it is there everywhere, and I'm sure every one of us have seen people experiencing financial abuse and financial trauma.
But let's understand the basics of financial trauma. I know when we were chatting earlier, you said that it's such a wide scope and it covers so much, but how would you define financial trauma, how it manifests, and how it affects a person's psychological behavior?
When we talk about financial trauma, it is basically a prolonged distress situation, a prolonged distress from chronic money-related causes. And these can be lack of resources, to poverty, to increasing debt, to increasing financial loss, or through financial discrimination. Your childhood stories, basically, how your childhood stories actually impact your financial decision making. I will also cover in the forms related to financial trauma to be financial abuse and financial bullying, which nowadays nobody talk about. But it is there everywhere, and I'm sure every one of us have seen, maybe have experienced or have seen vicariously people experiencing financial abuse and financial trauma.
I want to talk about that in greater detail, but for now, can you just give us examples of financial trauma? Maybe one example of a negative financial event in someone's life or a pattern that has led to financial trauma?
So before going to the example, I would talk about how financial trauma is manifested.
Okay.
So financial trauma can be manifested, and I talked about different forms of financial trauma. So it can be manifested in different ways. So some of the common ways are financial dependence, which is very common in financial abuse and financial bullying situation. So financial dependence is one. Overspending is another one. Underspending is another one. Workaholism is another one. Having a scarcity mindset is another one. Having low risk appetite, you are avoiding risk. And the major one out of all is financial avoidance. That is completely denying that you have financial trauma, you have any problem. Now, financial trauma is a starting point, and it can comorbid with various other symptoms. First is your emotional symptoms. The emotional symptoms will cover your anxiety, your sadness, your fear, your anger against the situation, your hopelessness against the situation. And constantly you have a feeling of guilt around it. It can also translate into states of depression. In many cases, it has been seen, if it is prolonged for a period of time, anxiety can lead to depression. It's a vicious circle, it's a cycle. So in general, when you face anxiety, human beings will do three things. Either they will fight, or they will flight, or they will freeze. Mostly, when you are in a state of financial trauma, you're not in a situation of fighting it back because you don't have the resources, correct? It is mostly freezing or flighting, that is doing nothing and escaping from the situation. Now, when you are not doing anything, your situation, your financial situation will remain same. You will not move from here to there, correct? And that can lead to excessive thoughts of hopelessness, helplessness, guilt, and it translates to prolonged state of depression. And when you are in a state of depression, you will have constant worry. You are overthinking, obsessively overthinking. You are in a state of worrying about the situation. Many a times, as this guy went into the state of denial as well, just to pacify himself that, okay, the problem is not existing. I'm there, but the problem is not existing. And then it translates back, slowly and steadily, translate back to the state of anxiety itself. So it's a vicious circle. It will go on and on.
Yeah. You know, it really snowballs, and I'd imagine so, because financial stress has a lot to do with your overall stress levels. In fact, a survey conducted in 2021 had 22 respondents say that financial stability was one of the main causes of stress, and I'd imagine that number is even more. What are some of the common psychological or emotional behavioral aspects that one needs to look for in a person who is going through financial trauma? Because today we're labeling it, but for a lot of people, they wouldn't even know it existed in their very own partner or family member.
I'm working with PGIM India, and here we actually do retirement readiness research, in which one good part we cover around financial decision making as well, financial planning as well. And we actually examine about 3,000 respondents in that, and we found, talking about specifically about anxiety, we found that 32% of employee base, they actually are feeling anxious about their finances. And I still feel that is kind of very underrated number. There are many more than this who are facing financial stress. Now, interestingly, out of this 32%, 76% they say that they are anxious because of their finances to that extent where their productivity is impacted. Their productivity at work is impacted. And 88% of this 32% basically says that if my organization supports me in financial planning, then we will be better off.
Okay.
And we will be more motivated towards work.
Okay.
And another good 49% of people, they say, and that's very interesting, they say if my organization is supporting me to plan my finances well and plan my retirement well, I will be more loyal to the organization.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So see how big one aspect is, how big it is everywhere when they're thinking about financial security, financial wellness, and managing their finances, and how they are asking their organizations as well to give them support, because these are the people who are actually giving them money for against their labor.
Yeah. You know, and just in the Indian context, and to scratch that point even further, what are some of the primary triggers for financial trauma, especially in the Indian context where we have this income disparity, income insecurity, that's fairly widespread?
Poverty is one aspect, or lack of resources, or lack of education, or illiteracy is one aspect which I think we are a bit worse than many others. Number two, I feel that we are in a country where social security, or that sense of security which comes with social security, is lacking.
Yeah.
So that can be another cause, because and nowadays, like just talking about and comparing with our parents, they were working in government organization, they had their retirement plans, they will be getting pensions. Now we have to think about our after 60 years on our own. And the kind of life they have imagined, the kind of life we are imagining is way different. So we have to prepare ourselves on our own. So that could lead to many instances related to financial trauma. And the most important aspect, I think that is globally everybody has acknowledged, we also have acknowledged, is we are in a country where we talk about finances. Nowadays, the kids are growing up, we talk about robotics, AI, this and that. But we don't give the basic fundamental education, that is the financial education, is not part of the curriculum.
Yeah,
I really believe that if that would have become a part of our educational curriculum, starting from say fourth standard, fifth standard, how to manage your personal finance, how to do budgeting, how to have the protection angle, emergency funds, investments. These are the major 4 pillars of your financial planning. If we are taught about it, we would at least be taking care when we will start earning.
So many interesting points that you brought up, and now I want to talk about them in greater detail. You spoke about childhood experiences sometimes and family dynamics, financial dynamics that can lead to financial trauma at a later stage. Do you have an example? Can you share one?
So childhood stories is basically when you were a child and you have vicariously experienced in and around the environment where you were brought up. So for an example, what you have observed, what you have heard, and what you have kind of experienced and lived with when you were a child. And every family, you might have seen the way they perceive, how parents perceive, how your grandparents perceive your money to be, and how they are having a relationship, good, bad, ugly. That actually stays in your head for your entire life. And I'm a big believer of nurture. So there's always a debate around nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer of whatever experiences you are the byproduct of your nurture. Though I'm coming from a background where nature, the biological structure of your of a person also impacts. And there are various studies which specifically in context to financial decision making, they say that there is a emotional genetic DNA which we actually inherit from our parents or from our grandparents, which actually is the belief system around your financial decision making. But I believe that your financial decision making is purely, majorly, 90% is what you experience throughout your life. And it starts from your childhood.
Yeah.
Given an example, like I'll talk about one story where the guy had been kind of coming from a very affluent family. His father's business was running well. Mother was a homemaker, only child of the family. And then one day they experienced the father actually had a big financial loss. They made a bad investment. From riches to rags, they were moved to a kind of lavish bungalow and it might look filmy, it might look like I'm talking about a Bollywood story, but that's a real life story where they were asked to, they had to manage with very limited resources in a 1 BHK, 2 BHK apartment. And the loss was that big that they were not able to recover and come back in their business. Everything got kind of shattered. Now this guy, when he grew up, when he started his own family, though he was able to because of his education, he started working, he never opened a business. So that was another aspect. Because of his bad experience, he never wanted to be putting his hand in the business. Though coming from a business family. He decided to do a proper job, a salaried job, got married. But then his aspects related to money were very tight, were very kind of you can say, he became kind of a scarcity mindset. The way he was approaching to money, the way he was approaching to budgeting, the way he was approaching to their personal finance aspects, and specifically investments. So scarcity mindset will bring you there. Now just think, this x-axis is your reality, your financial capacity, and your y-axis is your emotion, your perception, how I'm thinking about money. And just divide it into 4 quadrants. The topmost quadrant would be where both of them, your perception about money is higher, your financial capacity that you can provide for yourself, both are higher. This is a masterful situation.
Yes.
And this is the situation which we call as financial wellness. At this stage, you have achieved financial wellness. Now, The quadrant where you have higher financial capacity but low perception about money, that is a stage where you are in a scarcity mindset.
What are the other two quadrants?
Being low on your financial capacity and being low on your emotion as well. So that is a vulnerable quadrant where you are actually low on both and they are denying the fact. A lot of denial comes into the play. They don't want to move a needle because they are saying, okay, that this is my fate, this is the way I am,
Resigned to
this
it.
is the way nature, nurture has designed me, this is my destiny, aisa hi hona hai, aisa hi rahega. So they are in that particular mindset. They will be living their lives the way they are, and they will be, from small one or the other way, they will be finding their contentment or satisfaction. The another, I would say, interesting corner where you have the perception to be very high that yes, I have a lot of money, I can do whatever I want, but the capacity is low. So at any point in time, the reality will hit you, and you will be in a situation where your financial stressors will start playing onto you, and you will be in a state of financial
That's
trauma.
also a very dangerous.
And that's also very dangerous mode of thought process. Again, that is also they are they generally are carefree people, and they are into denial mode.
Yeah, more denial.
More denial. I don't want to accept the situation at all.
But I still want to live that lifestyle, or think I
Correct,
can live that
correct.
lifestyle. I want people to perceive that I'm living that lifestyle. And that's what I want to sort of double click on. Do you think that when you do not have the financial capacity, but you have the perception that you have the capacity, that a lot has to do with societal pressures and even to a certain extent social media, the
Absolutely.
fact that we're constantly comparing ourselves, we
Absolutely.
want more.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us more about society
Absolutely.
playing a big role there?
That is, as you mentioned, social media is a big player in that. You actually just see that, okay, this one is going for a vacation, this is maintaining this lifestyle, this is going for a party, blah, blah, blah. And you actually come back and say that I really have to do it. Want goes out of the picture. I really have to do it. Now, when you say I really have to do it, and in comparison to it, you don't have the resources, then what do?
You're digging a hole for yourself.
You're taking a hole for yourself. Maybe the perception out there for, okay, I am being perceived as very, staying in a very lavish lifestyle, I'm doing this and that, but your inner heart knows that there is a big gap. There is a big gap which I'm really not wanting to address. That is the state of denial I am. And this happens purely, majorly due to your aspects related to social conformity. Everyone, most of us as a human being, we want that other person, society, the ones where I move in, I'm being with, they should be acknowledging me.
Social acceptance.
Social conformity. What they are doing, I should be doing. I should be part of that. And that is very basic human instinct. That is attention-seeking behavior.
Wow, yeah, that really plays a big part. And then this thing of keeping up with the Joneses, you want to maintain those appearances non-stop. It can be very exhausting, especially if you don't have the resources, or you simply don't really want to, but you're just, conforming to what society is putting pressure on. Then you brought up the point about financial bullying. It is so interesting because it's perhaps very prevalent today, but it's not something that we put a label to. Tell us what financial bullying is.
So financial bullying is basically a form or a part of financial abuse. And financial abuse can happen in any relationship. So marital relationship, live-in relationship, non-marital relationship, parent and child relationship, business partnerships, any sort of relationship can go through. And it is basically manifested in a form of you are imposing or fostering financial dependence or financial control on the other person. You can call it as a victim here. You are imposing that. You are fostering that control. You want the other person to be not feeling, mentally not feeling empowered related to his finances or her finances. And that basically is done in the manner that you're limiting access to them about the finances of the family, about their accounts, about their expenses, about their loans, credits, what they have taken. And it can go to that extent where you are actually kind of stealing their identity or exploiting them and stealing their identity to make purchases, to take loans. So the extreme form of financial abuse can be this.
Yeah.
One of the covert aspect of financial abuse is financial bullying, which I'm sure many of us in subtle ways have either vicariously experienced. When I say vicariously experienced, that is basically when you have seen other people in your family talking about it or sharing certain episodes with you, or you have experienced it yourself. So vicarious is when you learn from other people's experiences. So either you have experienced it vicariously or you have experienced by yourself. So financial bullying is again a form where you are imposing the power, imposing the financial dependence onto another person. It can manifest in a very subtle, small comments like commenting on the grocery bills or commenting on why, how much are your shoes of? How costly are your shoes of? Why did you buy costly? And it can go to the extremity where you are actually bonding a person related to finances by allocating some amount every day.
Yeah, not giving them the
Not giving them the freedom to take decisions related to money, to make investments, to be a part of their assets, just giving them mere allocation of their regular finances to manage her or his finances. And I'm not talking about here her or his. I'm talking about any member, when you're talking a marital relationship, and generally it has been seen as the non-working member of the family or the elderly of the family who is not generating any income. So you're allocating a budget or you're allocating an allowance, which generally gives you, the way you're working in an organization, they give you allowance for this and that. The way you are giving an allowance, and you're not making them party to any of the financial decisions. You're not exposing them with any of the financial decisions which you have taken in past.
And then I'd imagine that financial trauma could lead a lot or be very closely interlinked with mental health. What are the mental health ramifications due to financial trauma?
So being a mental health practitioner by myself, working in the space of behavioral finance and behavioral science, and sitting in a country where we talk about mental health a lot, but there are seldom solutions related to mental health. And here we are talking about mental health and financial trauma. As the word suggests, financial trauma, it is very much related to the aspects related to your psychological well-being or mental well-being.
Yes.
And many studies, they say the level of trauma or the level of kind of hit to the mental health happens very closer to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a part of your DSM and ICD manuals of clinical health and well-being. So it's till that extent.
So what are the steps that people need to take, or financial institutions need to take, or family members helping those going through financial trauma need to take? Can you list it down?
So talking about what we can do when we actually realize, and I talk about that realizing is the first step, realizing the need to change is the first step. So what we do when we realize that I'm going through, or we are going through financial trauma as a family, I really believe that we should be taking professional help.
Yeah.
That is the first thing, once the realization has happened, seeking professional help, both. And now when I'm talking about financial trauma, it has both the essence. One is the finance and another is the trauma. So trauma part has to be discussed with the trauma part has to be discussed with a counselor, with a mental health practitioner who will be taking care of that particular aspect.
Yes.
On the other hand, a financial planner can take care of all your aspects, all your needs related to your finances. But in many cases, people don't straight away, like when they realize they don't straight away go to a financial advisor or go for counseling, given the kind of awareness we have about mental health, and it has generally been seen as a taboo in a market that, okay, you have this problem, you're going for a counselor, are you mad, are you crazy? We talked about taboo in the beginning around money, but actual taboo is the way you are feeling. So we are not so expressive, we are not asked to be that expressive at all in our daily lives, whether we are talking about money or whether we are talking about any other problems. So traumas are, okay, आया है तो चला जाएगा, क्या हो गया है तो stressor है, चलता रहता है, हर किसी की life में होता है, and then we say कि हर किसी की life में होता है, we create that social influence into the picture. But if you want to take it to a level like you want to do it yourself, there are simple rules of thumbs which you can be working around, which basically the first and the major rule of thumb: budgeting, protection, emergency, having an emergency corpus, emergency fund, and then thinking about your investments. So generally talking about budgeting, which is the first and the foremost aspect to be related to your cash flows, is having a 50, 30 and 20 kind of a bifurcation, where 50, and generally if you Google it, 50 is your need, 30 is your want, and 20 is your saving. I will just rephrase it a little bit differently. For me, 50, I would suggest 50 to be your needs and wants, 30 to be your EMIs, all your EMIs. Plan your goals or plan your credits in such a way that the 30% of your income is going into an EMI, and then rest your 20% can be taken care by is covering your savings, and if you want to invest that particular aspect. So this could be a very, very simple rule of thumb which you can practice. But given that we are human beings, we have been coming with a lot of biases, and specifically when we are talking about financial trauma, a lot of biases like loss aversion comes into the play, anchoring bias comes into the play, status quo bias when we were talking about your anxiety situation and reaction in terms of flight or freeze. That is basically you want to stay in the same denial or you want to stay in the same situation. That is a status quo bias. You don't want to change anything in that. All these biases actually come into play with when you are talking about financial trauma. Having a positive frame of mind is very, very important. And why I'm saying that? Because you see, we don't plan for negative outcomes. We don't plan for negative outcomes. We always plan for positive goals and positive outcomes. You want to buy a car, you want to buy a home, we want to start a business, we want to go for a vacation. All our goals are associated with some or the other positive outcome. So we have to change the frame here. So for example, if we have taken debt and we want to repay it, instead of going into a denial situation, I would have been thinking in a positive mindset where I'm thinking, okay, if I'm repaying this at the earliest, I'm actually paying less interest. That is something which we need to talk about, or that is something which we need to consider. Mental accounting is another good aspect. So it can be considered in the frame of saving, or it can be considered in the frame of whatever credits or loans you have. You need to bucket each of them. Instead of, okay, I have this much loan or I have this much saving, you need to divide it into different buckets and try doing, okay, which is the smallest loan I have taken? I can fulfill it. And that will actually give you a motivation to go for the second one, go for the third one. Another aspect which is very important behaviorally, I feel, is and why people don't think about finances at the first place, and why they don't plan their finances. It's basically the psychological distance. The more you are psychologically distant from the goal, the more you will not be able to plan that. And I'll give you an example. And it is evident in our retirement research as well, that people start planning for their retirement at the age of 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Why 40s and 50s become the mark for planning the retirement? Why can't they do at 30s? Why can't they do at 20s when they start their first job? It's just because of psychological distance. The farther you are from that goal, the blur or abstract you will see it. So today, for example, if I'm 30, 35, 40, and if somebody says, Sagneet, tell me, can you visualize what will happen to your life? What would be the standard of living? Can you clearly tell me what will happen after 30 years? I will not be able to. It's so far. I can tell 3 years, 4 years, 10 years from now, but 30 years is too much.
Yeah.
So we have to actually bridge the gap between today, who I am, and my particular goal.
Yes.
That bridging the gap and positively bridging the gap actually plays a lot of role in how we are perceiving and approaching this aspect of financial trauma. And lastly, in this whole aspect, when we are discussing financial trauma, and before that, I'll ask a question to you. You have asked me so many questions. To explain that, I'll ask a question to you. If I say, where does your money come from, Avan? What will you say?
Well, work, investments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, your job.
Yes.
So I have tested this same question with almost more than 5,000 people, including advisors and investors.
Yeah.
And 80 to 85, more than 85%, around 90% people, they say that it is coming from my job, my occupation. Advisors would say it is coming from my commissions or the investments, etc. This is the similar answers I will get. But I don't believe in that. This is, for me, as a behavioral scientist, as a behavioral finance practitioner, this is wrong. Your money, which you're drawing every month or every year, is coming from your skill set. You are renting your skill set, which is fetching you money. Yeah. And there are only 3 ways of earning money. One is your land, one is your labor, and one is your capital.
So that's from a personal standpoint, but what role can financial institutions play in aiding people with financial trauma?
So I think when it comes to financial institutions and policymakers, I really believe that in organizations, the way we talk about health insurance or life insurance or insuring and providing the insurance benefits to an employee, financial security, financial wellness or financial planning could be added to the benefit package by the employees. That is and if there are policies, if policy makers make it a policy and then everybody would be like working around it, I think policymakers should be thinking of that particular aspect for sure. Another aspect which I really believe that would be very, very effective is that, and it's very challenging also, the way we talked about multiple skills. If the employees are being allowed to learn and then monetize their multiple skills, I'm fully, I really believe that it should not go into the compliance side, or it should ensure the conflict of interest with the organization where they are working. But if this is brought to the practice where people can monetize their monetize their skills and have passive income at their free time, which is not kind of coinciding with their work aspect, that can be really, really important and interesting. So another point could be that I am really not a big believer or big supporter of mass layoffs. I understand no organization would do it mindfully, but they really don't want to do it, but they have to do it kind of a situation they are usually in when they do it. But I'm not a big supporter of it. I believe that the way we have disaster management for managing our facilities, the same way, why not organizations? We talk about emergency fund. Why not organizations? They have their emergency funds as a disaster management for their businesses ready when they are in a situation where downturns are happening, where they are having losses, where their equities are going down in terms of share prices, etc. They can manage people, they can hold people, they can provide for their people who have they hired. They can freeze more employment in their company, but they should not be laying that off. If that can be rectified through some policies, I think they will save many, many people from financial trauma. And I'm not saying many people. If they're laying off 1,000, multiply that with families of at least 4 to 5. So 1,000 into 5 is 5,000 people they are impacting, because it's not one person who is getting impacted. It is the whole set of people getting impacted. And lastly, financial education. Financial education at the grassroots level, at the school level is the important thing, I believe.
Wow, it's really been interesting understanding all of these aspects from you. So thank you for patiently answering the questions and walking us through all of your very valuable insights. Lots of key takeaways. Financial trauma is real, and it results largely due to the fact that it's a prolonged period of financial stress. Not talking about money and making money a taboo topic is one of the key reasons as to why it emanates. It can lead to a lot of issues cognitively, overthinking, stress, abuse, affect our relationships and our mental health severely. This can also be caused by financial dependence, overspending, underspending, scarcity, as well as complete financial avoidance, and of course due to societal conformity and pressures. But there is so much we can do about it. Firstly, you need to acknowledge the fact that you have a problem, seek professional help, seek financial help, and seek mental help, because that is very critical. Budgeting, saving up for emergencies, all of that is very important from a very early stage. I hope that this really helped you in understanding how to deal with financial trauma. I'm curious to know, do you know of anyone who's dealing with financial trauma? Is it something that you could potentially see yourself experiencing? Do let us know in the comments section below and tell us how this episode helped you. Do remember to subscribe to Personal Finance TV. I will catch you in the next episode of Temperament Season 2. Thanks for watching.